All right. Welcome to Libby's Lounge Author Hangout Edition, where the books are great, but the authors are even better. Today we are here with Mikel Melwasul. Did I say that right?
You did.
Yes. All right. Yeah. So let's talk. What are you working on? Any big projects? Anything?
Yeah.
Always.
So currently my second book, Paragon Attrition, is with beta readers. So we've been working on book 2 since 2020. So it's been a long process. Having something I've been working on every day for the last, I guess, 4-5 years at this point. Being with beta readers and waiting, they've got like 3 months to read it. So that's its own thing. But in the meantime, my co-author and I are trying to crank out a series of short stories for a collection of short stories to release as a really short little snippet, just a little taste of our writing within the world of our book series, to try and just give some fun stuff to readers that's a little more digestible and isn't a $40 book because it's not 800 pages long.
Yeah, that's fair. Co-author, how does that work? Because I don't know that I have ever met anyone who's co-authored before.
Yeah, so Dave is a good buddy of mine. He just recently retired from the military. I originally brought him in as like an editor, like an alpha reader. He's a buddy of mine from college who was a military dude who had an English degree. So it's like, well, I know your taste because we're good friends.
Perfect.
You got an English degree. Yeah, you hit all the criteria. And because there was a heavy military presence to the characters in my book, and it's a modern military presence. So I wanted to really make sure that element of the story was grounded, and anyone with a military background or experience would be able to read the book without cringing at it. Because I'm not military. My family has a lot of military. So a lot of times when I'm engaging with something and the wrong terminology or something is used, it's always grated on me. So I wanted to make sure I had someone to run that through. And so Dave and I had like a 4-hour session going through the early first act draft of my book back in 2017. And we just kept meeting every weekend to keep talking about stuff. And it progressed to such a point where at the end of book 1, he was credited as the editor. But by the time we're going into book 2, he's just helped me build this car under us as we're driving to such a degree that I'm like, you are a co-author. Congratulations on your promotion, whether you like it or not. But editor doesn't really explain your role in this anymore.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because I know not everyone has the ability to share the credit like that.
Yeah. I mean,
it speaks a lot about you.
Oh, and I think it's one of the most unique things about our book is it's our book. I say my book a lot, but it's our book, and his involvement, his brain. It's a story of 3 minds, because it's not just my brain; it's my wife's brain, because she's involved in everything I do. I run every single idea past her. She's the medium between the two of us if we have any kind of disagreement. So really, it's my book, her book, and his book, and I think that elevates so many parts of the story in such a massive story like ours that it enables it to be something more than it would be otherwise.
Yeah, I love that. That is so interesting. So he's retired. What do you do? What's your day job?
My day job is I am a supervisor at a background check company in Southeast Georgia.
Really cool.
Yeah, so I train. Cool, I think it's cool. I enjoy it a lot. I train researchers on how to do background checks on right now 13 counties. My county jurisdictions has shifted between like 30 and 13 counties. It just depends on the need. But I train a team and I supervise, and it's mostly like parallel HR duties at this point. Sorry. But I'm very familiar with the whole process and what's needed. And it's a lot of answering questions like, hey, can we submit this person without enough identifiers, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Do you find that you put that into your work at all?
I think I put so. Right. So in 2 ways, yes. So on one hand, I have a criminal justice degree, and I'm using that for this job. And I think my criminal justice degree has, in a lot of ways, informed my perspective on humanity and my opinions on people and what people are.
Yeah, I took a criminal justice class in college, and I'm like, this is dark. This is dark.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of criminal justice, the focus of it's learning the law, learning how the law works and stuff. But one of the main focuses of criminal justice is trying to understand why crime happens. And there's tons and tons and tons of theories. And I mean, this gets into my worldview a little bit, but I feel like there's one answer that applies to all theories because I think all theories are a little true.
Mm-hmm.
But I think humanity and humans are inherently evil, and we have to choose to not be evil. And I think when you
Yes.
can accept that fact, you can see why every theory about why crime happens stems from that root ideology.
I agree with that. I can definitely agree with that statement.
Yeah. And
But
so
I
the
mean,
other way, go ahead. Sorry.
no, just like we're a military family, so I see what a
Yeah.
lot of people don't see, and I hear things that a lot of we think about. Like we
Yeah.
live in Okinawa, like we
Sure.
are safe in Japan, but we are right by our big, enemies that we need to be
Yeah.
aware of. Like we can't go through China when we fly.
Sure. Sure.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
if we think about all that, so I agree with that statement 100%. I think that
Yeah,
reflects
and a
in
lot
my
of my
books too.
professors
But
wouldn't. A lot of
really,
my professors wouldn't, but I
why
think
not?
it really ties. Well, they have different reasons for believing why crime happens, right? And people don't want to believe that people are inherently evil. That's a scary
Yeah.
thought. It's a scary concept for people, especially people who haven't been exposed to that side of humanity, right?
Yes.
But it explains a lot, and I think it makes goodness even more powerful if goodness is not our inherent inclination, our inherent reflex, that we have to choose that, and it takes more strength to choose that. And I think that makes things more wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to choose that. You have to train that. You have to
Yeah.
reinforce that because there's always, you have ones that slip through and you're like, I know where you grew up. How did you end up like this?
Right. Right. Yeah. And that, I mean, that gets into like nature versus nurture, which is a big discussion that happens in the criminology field. Is are psychopaths a product of nature, or are psychopaths a product of nurturing? And again, I think it's both. But again, it ties back to, if you
Yes.
accept that humanity is just inherently, some people embrace that side, And then so you asked how that incorporates into my writing.
Yeah.
That's one part of it. There's a funner side of how my job incorporates into my writing, and that's I go through hundreds of names every day. So I get ideas for character name. I have a constant flow of character name ideas. And with
That's
this
awesome.
job, I have realized there's no character name that's too ridiculous because of the number and types of names I've seen in real life.
That's fair. I have a hard time with, I have like 5 names that I revert to, and I'm like, there's got to be more names than what I'm
There's
choosing.
so many names.
I might have to message you and be like, I need a male name. Because I tried to do like the like baby names, but it's
Mm-hmm.
filtered and all the the most popular
Sure.
ones come up, and I'm
Sure.
like, I don't want popular names.
Yeah, and
But
that's
then I get
tricky
into a
because
rabbit
you
hole.
yeah, and I mean, there's personal biases, right? One person ruins a name for everyone in their lifetime. There's names that
Oh,
like when you get married, you might have a name that you're like, I want this for a kid, and the other person's like, nope, I knew us so and so one time, and they were the worst, so that
oh
name
yeah,
is alienated. So it's similar in writing, right? And like people, and that's
yeah,
another thing with writing is like a name is so important because a name can change the genre of a book to a degree, right? If I
yep.
open a book and I see the name Zayden, I might put the book down immediately, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on what kind of vibe you're going for. And but other people might see that and go, "Ooh, I'm really into this." It's just it's tone.
Yeah, it does. It sets the tone. It sets the world. I am not a fan of fantasy names I can't pronounce. I mean, I'll read them,
Yeah.
but then I can't talk about it with anybody because I'm like, that name that I can't pronounce,
Yeah.
that was gibberish. So I have a hard time with that.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, I'm as a fantasy author, I get that. I get that. And I one of my favorite things though is hearing people mispronounce my names. Because like
Oh, that's
growing
gotta be
up,
fun.
yeah, and I think it's an interesting thing too, because like growing up, I read the Aragon series and stuff, and like I
I
mispronounced a
love
ton
that
of the
series.
names, and I love getting audiobooks of books I've read before and be like, oh, I've never talked to anyone about this, so I didn't know I was mispronouncing these names. So I always love hearing the different ways people pronounce my characters' names that are on the more fantasy side of things, because it's like, oh, that's not right, but if that's how you've been picturing it, that's fine. Is there a canonical version of how it's pronounced? Yeah, absolutely. Listen to the audiobook if you want to hear it. Otherwise, keep saying it how you want to say it. I don't mind.
Yeah, once it's in your hands, it's your experience.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to change your experience with it. I'm just giving you the vehicle. How you drive, it's up to you.
Right.
I did that with Hermione growing up.
Hermione,
I totally butchered her name until I got the audiobook.
That's a very popular one.
I can't even tell you how I like Hermie one or something.
Hermie one.
So very, very embarrassing.
I mean, is it? I mean, English. Here's the thing: English doesn't make sense. It's 13 different languages disguised as one. Like, it's not our fault. Phonetics are not logical.
They are not. We're learning Japanese over here, and it's so much easier.
Yeah.
It's so much easier. Like, not the kanji. That I'm never going to learn.
Kanji's its own beast.
Yeah, they've got 3 alphabets. Hiragana, katakana, and kanji. And the hiragana and katakana are the characters and their syllables. And no matter where they are, that is the sound they're always going to make. There's no changing it. It's so nice.
That is nice.
Is that a hard C or a soft C? Is that an invisible C? Like, I feel.
Why is there an H here?
English.
Yeah, no, it's impressive.
Why is there a P but it makes an F sound? I don't understand. Yeah, there's none of that. So, all right. So you're working on 4 years. How long did it take you to write book 1?
6 to 7 years.
Okay, that gets me. Your book is still on my list with all the books that I want to read.
Yeah.
2025 is indie year, so nice. I'm reading whatever book club book we have for the month, and then an indie book. That's my goal for 24 books.
Nice.
And yours is like right at the top, because I've heard, first of all, you're amazing. And every time I get to know an author, I want to read their books. But I've heard great things, but knowing you spent that long on it makes me want to read it more.
Good.
Because that means you actually put the time in the care in.
Yeah.
And the dedicate, like there's a lot that goes into it. So like, I know it's going to be.
It's not fast fashion for me.
No.
And that was before I had a kid too.
Yeah. My first book took me 10 years. And that was like having a kid and moving and stuff.
Right.
So I get that dedication and I highly appreciate it. Because people are like, wow, 10 years. I'm like, yeah. Like I had to get to know
how many drafts?
6 or 7.
6 or 7. Okay. We're about the same.
I have a 2012 version. That was like the first one I ever tried to query. I have a 2014 version. No, 2004. I don't know. They're like super far apart.
Yeah.
And then the rewrites, because it was first person, and then it was single person, YA, and then it was adult, and it was double. Yeah, there was 6, 7 versions of it. I like the final version.
Good. That's the one that matters.
Yeah. Now I'm pretty dedicated to it because we're on to book 4 with 3 more after it.
So 7 total.
Yeah, 6 to 7. I think the last book depends on the final arc when I figure it out. How long it's going to take.
Right.
Do you plot?
Yeah, and that's yes. Yeah, we plot. We plot in chunks. I have
that makes
scenes.
sense because you have a co-author. You have to plot because they're not in your head.
Yeah. But and there's a lot of discovery writing to it as well. I think there has to be. I think any good book requires discovery writing.
Yeah.
You get these characters, and this wasn't something I thought I really fully embraced till recently. People talk about the characters taking over, and that had never really been something I'd felt like I'd experienced. Maybe just because I'd outlined book 1 so much, and I've had the idea in my head for so long. I had so many scenes figured out and stuff, but that happened to a degree I was not prepared for in book 2.
How was that ride?
it will it changed the trajectory of the book. Like we still are going to get to the same end point. We've had the end planned out from the beginning. We can still get there. We can make it work. It was just like it shifted things because it's like this character is just going to go and take out this other character because it doesn't make sense for them not to. Because that's part of the advantage of the setting we're writing in is it's like a post-apocalyptic. So there are no rules. There's no rules, and people with power make the rules, and that's an inherent part of the story. So when a character who's a trained mercenary says, "You know what? I'm sick of this person. I'm just going to go take that person out."
Yeah.
As the author, I was like, "Well, that's the only thing this person would do, and like, there's no reason for them not to. Like, they're the better like they're gonna go try and do it, and we'll see what happens, and we'll write it and figure it out."
Yes. That I love that. That's my favorite part of writing is the discovery. Like I've audibly gasped while writing. My daughter's like, "What happened?" I'm like, "I can't believe they just said that." She's like, "You wrote it." I'm like, "No, I'm just transcribing. I'm not actually thinking of this stuff."
Right. Yeah. Yeah. My co-author and I are regularly like, "What's wrong with us?"
Maybe everyone else is wrong and we're right. We are writers.
Well, I know, maybe, but we're wrong. Why would we do this to people is the question we ask ourselves.
I mean, somebody has to.
Somebody has to. That's right.
I'll take one for the team. Man. So, how many books do you have planned for the series? I don't know if you answered that already.
I don't think I did. The Galvorn Saga has 3 main entries.
Okay.
So it's going to be Paragon Exordium, Paragon Attrition, and Paragon Retribution.
Nice.
We currently we're planning on Paragon Apocrypha, which is going to be our collection of short stories. And then Dave is writing Paragon Odyssey, which is a novella spin-off about some characters in book 1 who disappear. That's going to be very Southern Gothic horror vibes to it. Very much heavily inspired by the Odyssey, which is really trendy right now. And we were planning that before it got trendy, but we're okay with that.
That's cool.
So that Dave's taking the lead on that one. I've been the lead writer for most of the stuff, but he's like, "I have a concept I want to do. Let me do it." And you take the editing seat. So I'm excited for that. He's working on that now. And we're challenging ourselves to keep it novella length. And we have a couple potential ideas for future novellas between books, but the main series is 3. And then we have 2 follow-up series within this world that we have concepts for that we'd like to also write, but no set number on those.
Nice. Yeah. I like that you have a world and you can play in it now. Like you've put so much work into it. Everyone asks me like, "What are you doing after you finish this series?" I'm like, I have other series, but I've built so much into this world. I could live here forever. Like I don't have to go anywhere. I probably will, but
yeah.
Why?
I mean, we have yeah.
Would you? No, go ahead.
I mean, we have franchising like aspirations. Like I want to bring other authors into this world. It's a vast world, and we're only getting a microcosm of the story of this world. And there's a lot of fun stuff to play with. And I think like Tolkien brought fairy tales back into the mainstream with Lewis, right? And they made that a whole genre that we're still feeling repercussions for. And I want to bring a level of epic modern fantasy into our world and use this as a vehicle to spread that. And in the setting that it takes place in, with being our world and it's the return of magic and stuff, there's opportunity for any kind of genre you want to create within this context.
That's fantastic. That's a huge idea, and it's an absolutely fantastic idea.
We have a lot of dreams to go with it.
That's dream big. My big dream is to see it on the TV screen.
Yeah, I did a 24-hour play in college for the theater department, where I wrote the play that was performed. And then it was rehearsed and performed within 24 hours. And I sat in the audience while that was performed. And that is a high I don't know if I will ever fully reach again until I see Paragon on a screen. Because getting to sit in an audience and listen to the people around you laugh at something you wrote is just another level different from writing is its own experience because I love engaging with other authors and readers as they're going through it. But sitting surrounded by people who don't know who you are,
That's
listening to them react to a thing you created it's mind shattering in a way.
that is epic. Like 24 hours you wrote a play.
I
That's
wrote
not
it in less
just
because they had to perform it.
oh. So what was it
It was
about?
only like a 10-minute thing.
Oh, but still, that's impressive.
Thank you.
What was it about?
I think I get the one I wrote and the one I was in confused. It was about death and
Love
these
it.
characters in a waiting room, and death was the person like calling their names and trying to figure out where they were going and help them pick an after.
I love that. I love that.
It was
I'm
fun.
obsessed with death in like a healthy way and in a writer way.
Good. In a writer way. We all are a little
Let's
bit, aren't we?
clarify that a little bit. I love like Grim Reaper's death. I love that's like
Yeah.
another series I want to work on. Yeah, that was the
Fun.
plan after the first Assassin's Legacy was to work on that, and then I ended up writing a sequel, and then a sequel, and then a
Right.
sequel. So one day. All right. Sorry, hold on. I have things popping up on my screen.
You're good.
Okay, there we go. So you're a playwright. You're a co-author. You are a low-key background checker. What else do you do?
What else do I do? I'm a dad. At this
That's important.
Point. Because my job, I work from home, so I keep the little one with me. So I'm full-time dad, full-time stay-at-home dad, while also working a full-time job and writing on the side.
Huge props. I did that. That's hard. That is hard.
It is.
You
She's
are
wonderful.
impressive. Take your time on your writing.
Yeah, I have to. My wife sent a video earlier of me having a laptop out and her walking up to me, talking to me, and then just closing it on my lap. Just reaching over, closing. It's time for me, Dad.
Yep. They're very astute at that age. They're very like, you're paying too much attention to this. Like, pay attention to
18
me.
months.
It's very humbling. Yeah.
It is. It's
I
funny.
find it humbling at times that the little ones can be like, you are not prioritizing what you need to prioritize. I'm like, you are 100% right.
Yeah, I do most of my writing between 11:30 p.m. and 1 a.m.
Golden hours.
Golden hours. I mean, it was like that before I had a kid, though. That's always been my best time for writing. Bit of a night owl.
I can't write that late. Well, I do. I shouldn't. Because
Right.
we're up at like 5 a.m. now with the kids. They're older, but we have to get to school. My job, I have to be there at 6. So before I had children, I would stay up to like 4 in the morning writing.
Mm-hmm.
With children, they got up at 4:30 in the morning.
Right.
I don't know why. I was blessed with that hour of children waking.
Sounds
but
familiar.
when I'm on a deadline, I just don't sleep. I'll stay up till 3 in the morning, and then who needs sleep?
Yeah. I like to game in my spare time. I don't have a ton of time to do a lot of things. I used to do more other things. I like to stay in the house. I don't like to go out a whole lot. I like to hang out inside and just spend time with the people I love. I'm doing a drawing challenge for myself right now.
Nice.
So trying to teach myself to draw over a year.
How's it going?
So I did art class in high school, and I have a lot of artists in my family. My dad's an artist. My aunts are. I have essential tremors, so I was never committed to it, and I did an art class, and I hated it because of the essential tremors, and I can't draw a straight line, and that really frustrated me. And I was doing this general class, and so I quit it. I quit the class, but my teacher actually called my parents and asked them to make me stay because she's like, he has a unique style. I'd really like to see him push through it. But I was like, no, it makes me angry. I don't want to be angry. I don't like being angry. I'm not going to do it. And so I follow tons of artists just because I love art. And one of the things I like to do with my characters is I like to try and find an artist whose style represents the character in a lot of ways. So like some of these characters back here have been chosen to kind of reflect the personality of the character a little bit. And so I love looking at art and trying to find artists who I feel like will represent the character well. And I don't have the money to just hire every artist I want to hire. So I was like, well, if I can force myself to learn to draw, maybe I can start doing it myself. So I'm trying to do at least 5 minutes worth of drawing every day for a year to see if it improves.
That's a really good dedication challenge. I get frustrated and I quit.
Yeah, yeah, that's the point I'm at right now, trying to fight that. Because like I got a little like it's like how to draw like an anime style, and it's like draw a line and then 3 lines on. I was like, I can't draw a line. I physically cannot draw. Like imagine trying to draw a line in a massage chair. That's me trying to draw a line.
Yeah.
So now I'm just trying to figure out and just gain awareness of space and techniques and find ways to compensate and embrace the scraggliness of it and try and pull my style out. But my focus right now is kind of studying anatomy and the distance between things until I have a really proper grasp on that. And then I can sort of lean into the stylized side of things, because if I can't get things even, there's got to be a way for me to bring out what I want to do with it. And a lot of people have advised getting like an iPad because there's a lot of stabilization tools and stuff, which is great. But that's it's a budgetary thing I don't have right now. So for now,
like, let me just
it's
go buy an
pencil and
iPad.
paper. Yeah, right. There's all these programs. They'll stabilize the mouse. It's like I got to learn the basics before I get to that point. But also, every spare cent goes into feeding the family, and every spare cent beyond that is maybe going into producing book 2.
Yeah.
Not a priority.
Yeah. Have you found that producing book 1 and producing book 2 have been different in terms of difficulty and cost, like projected for book 2?
Yeah, and there's different struggles. So when we did book 1 and up and through publishing, I wasn't part of the writing community.
Oh,
I was an avid
I guess
reader, but
I
I wasn't
wasn't
on
either.
any. Yeah, I
Yeah, I
wasn't
wasn't
in
on
any
anything.
groups or on TikTok or anything like that. It was just me and Dave, and then like my wife and people around in my family. So like the beta reader process, I messaged like 70 people and got like 10 people willing to beta read for me. And of those 10 people, like 7 actually did it, and that whole process. And that took like a month to get set up. But this time, I had 10 people volunteer within 30 minutes to
That's
beta read book 2 from my Discord, who are
yeah.
just like, and it was a mixture of authors and readers and people who I was like, that feedback is going to be really valuable. The feedback for book 1 was valuable, but I'm really excited to get the feedback from this group because it's more people who know what they're talking about. So that's a difference. And then just knowing people. The editor we went with for book 1 was someone we hired off Fiverr, who even before we got too far, we decided we weren't going to use him again because like he didn't get things that we felt like he should have gotten. Like there's a line in the book, and it's how the turntables, right, which is the Office reference, but like how the turntables is so integrated into my own dialogue that I didn't even fully realize that I was writing a reference to it in the book, but it's not the proper reference. And so he was like, did you mean the popular phrase, how the table turns? I was like, no, no, I didn't. That was intentional. And just there's a lot of little things that this guy missed that made us be like, we're not going to go back to him. But now I have people who've read book 2 who have editing services who I'm leaning toward using them and having someone more familiar. So when I feel like I can have more of a genuine conversation with, I know more about the process. Cost wise, so our cover for book 1, very proud of it, love it immensely. It's a phenomenal cover. It's really good. It cost $3,000.
What?
Because of the licensing rights, and we hired someone who'd won a Tolkien Society award, a very very talented author with a artist with a lot of followers and stuff, thinking that would help get the name out and stuff. She didn't help as much as we thought she would. And and that at the time when that happened, I didn't have a kid. I had more expendable income. I don't have that level of spendable income anymore, right? I don't regret it, but we're not going with the same artist for the cover of book 2, and I don't feel like we have to.
Yeah, I know. You have a.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just stuck on.
No.
That is
Yeah.
insane.
And then I didn't know how insane that was contextually because the people I talked to and the artists I reached out to gave me similar price numbers. It was just a question of who was the most middle line and whose style did we feel like would be the best. And she gave us like 5 drafts and she worked with us and she was wonderful and incredibly talented. And that money went to
I'm sure
supporting
she's
author
worth it.
artist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely
Her
think it's worth
talent
it.
is worth it.
Yeah,
I'm not in that budget yet.
Yeah, and I'm not either. Nowhere near it this time around. So that's a budget shift we're having to adjust for. And the cost with our book, one of the reasons we weren't traditionally published is because it's almost 800-page book,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that cost feeds into the editing process, feeds into the printing process, feeds into the overall cost of the book. So that's an area where we're adjusting and working on. And book 2 is currently shorter. Thank God. We will see what happens when we do beta reader edits.
Yeah.
So
I hear that. My first book was much thicker than the ones after. And I didn't realize how much of that cost difference mattered until I wrote something that was shorter. And I was like, oh, okay. It had to be that long, though. There was no shortening it. That's one of the reasons I also couldn't get in with an agent. They were like, this is fantastic. Write something shorter. I'm like,
right. Yep.
This is 10 years of my life. I'm not writing something shorter. Thank you very much.
Right. Yeah. No, our first book, our beta readers feedback, we ended up adding 31,000 words because they wanted more. And that's always been the feedback is people want more. And I like long books. I like large books.
Yeah.
That was a major factor. It's an epic fantasy. There's a lot of world building that has to happen. And I understand agents not wanting to take the risk on that. That's a big reason why we went indie was people were just like, you are not only first time author, you're co-authors, which is just no one wants to work with and deal with that. Mm-hmm. Your book's 800 pages long. Your target audience is generalized. Like you say it's for adults, but you say it's accessible to children. Like it's clean because I wrote a book with the inspiration of Tolkien and Lewis, and I want it to be accessible to all ages, even though the intended audience is adults. I want families to be able to read it and enjoy it, which has happened. It works, but it's not something that agents and publishers want to take a risk on with an 800-page novel.
Nope. And that's okay, because you can take a risk on yourself, and it pays more.
And that's what we decided to do.
Yeah. In the long run, it pays more. And not just monetarily, just like you did all the work. And that's, as an indie author, I did not want to go indie because I did not want to do the marketing. I did not want to put all the work in. 4 years into it now, I'm like, I did that.
Right.
I didn't know how to market. I know how to market now. I didn't know how to find an editor. I found an editor. We sell ourselves short when there's an easier way out.
Even with traditionally published books, there's such a large factor of it is luck.
It's all luck.
It's all luck on all departments. We've done really well. Or who you know, exactly. Yeah, or who you know. And we've done well. In just over a year, we sold over 500 copies of the first book.
That is fantastic.
So we're according to statistics, we're in the top % of authors published in the world, which is a crazy statistic to think about. But only 500 copies, whereas there's other indie authors out there who sold 10,000 in their first 2 years. It's literally just getting it in the right hands. And when the right person finds it, and then it's going to pop off. I know it is.
Yeah.
It is just a matter of time.
Yeah, I feel the same way. When you put it in the work, you put in the dedication, you put in the time.
Yeah.
The universe will reciprocate. If we can just put another hour or 17 in a day, that would be great. If we could put another day in the week that was simply, this is a writing day.
That would be good.
That would be great. That would be really great.
I wouldn't write anything on that day.
I
would try for 4 hours and then get nothing done, and then
so you have to,
I would do all of it.
Are you a last minute
Oh, it's such a bad habit. I try, and that's the thing is Dave and I set these deadlines for each other. So a weekly deadline. I'm like, I need this to be done, and I end up doing, depending on how much there is, I end up doing most of it the night before.
I'm right there with you. You're good. You're in good
And I mean,
company.
it's largely due to like having the child and the night before usually being the weekend, and so I can stay up later and do it.
Yeah.
Those are factors. But like, I don't know. I can't write during the day. I can edit during the day, but I cannot write in the morning on the weekend. I have to do it at night.
Interesting. Do you think it's just because you've
It really
always done
bothers
it
me.
that way?
I mean, it could be. It might just be the quiet of the night. I like the dark. Maybe it's just the inherent vampirism.
I can't write first thing in the morning.
Yeah,
Afternoon, I'm okay.
I can do
But
some. It depends. It depends, but mostly editing.
yeah. I've had people like, well, why don't you get up at like 5 a.m. and get some words written? I'm like, I'll sleep for the extra hour. Like, I cannot,
Right.
like, I can get myself up to go if I have appointments. I have
Yeah.
places to be. I've made
Right.
plans to get to write. No, I'll just stay up till 4 o'clock
That's
in the morning
sleeping
and not
time. Yeah,
sleep.
exactly. You're sacrificing sleep on one end or another. It's just a question of
Just,
which end.
yeah, I'd rather do it at the end of the day.
Right. Because for some reason that feels better than doing it first thing in the morning.
Maybe my characters are still sleeping at 5 a.m. as well. And
That's
they're
it.
like, we're not talking to you.
The same
Like,
time zone. That's right.
like you can get up. We're sleeping. Uh,
Maybe.
so, what has been your biggest challenge, do you think? Like in general for in writing since you've started all of your projects?
In writing?
Yeah.
Hmm. No. That's a good question. Biggest challenge. I mean, I would say marketing, but that's not in writing. That's in publishing. Biggest challenge. I mean, getting in the female headspace, maybe.
Okay.
And that's something. So like, there's a character in my book, and this is going to surprise any of my readers that I would say that because all of my female characters, my wife has read through in detail to make sure it's grounded because I never ever want to be accused of the man writing woman thing. And I don't think I inherently have that type of personality. I'm not going to go her boobs boobed boobily or something in my writing like some people do, just crazy, just
I
insane
I have a group
insanity.
chat that
Right.
I'm in that we just send that all back. I'm surprised at stuff that
Right.
I'm like,
Yeah, and I
it's
would never do that. But there's a frame of mind and there's a way of talking which I'm pretty good at getting in people's heads. But like I have this one character who my readers absolutely despise, and the reason they despise this character is because of my wife's influence. Because there is a way in which this character communicates, and she's like every high school girl's bully anyone's ever known. Everyone's met this person, and
mhm.
I was not able to capture that magic on my own. My wife had to come in and be like, "This is too cartoonish. That's too on the nose. You need to make this sharper. This is how girls insult each other." And just the differences in the psychology there, and how I didn't have the brain space because like that doesn't make sense or that's not. And she's like, no, that's cartoonish, that's too mean. It has to be coded, has to be layered, and helping me fine tune that. And it's one of the strengths of the story is I know people absolutely despise this character, like violently despise this character. It's really funny how much people hate. It's one of the most talked about. One of the biggest responses I get are, "Oh my god, you offed this person I loved." And oh my god, I despise this person so much. Please, please end
Off
them.
them. Yes.
Please. I think I've made it through that, but that was definitely one of the trickier things.
Okay. I can see that. Yeah. Because I've definitely read some not so well written male and female characters
Sure.
from like,
And that's something that doesn't get talked about a lot.
yeah,
Is male characters written by
by
women that
female just
by female
don't
voices
work.
that don't work. That
Yeah.
guys have a very similar reaction of like, come on.
I want to be in on those group chats.
Yeah, yeah. See, I think maybe I think my inclination would be when I encounter that character is I just stop reading. I might be faster to DNF that than others. I don't know. I don't know.
That's interesting.
But
Do you
I
DNF a
think
lot
that
of
might be why
books?
that doesn't come up. I don't DNF a lot of books. I'm sort of trying to adjust. I'm trying to be more open about DNFing books, but I'm also so it's a tie between I'm just usually super picky about what I read anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't read a book unless I know I'm going to get into it. So that's part of it. And but then now it's at this point it's a matter of time where I'm like, if I know I'm not going to like or enjoy this, I will usually lean toward DNFing it. And I spent the last year reading indies only. Excuse me. I've DNF'd 3 or 4 since I started
Really?
doing that.
I DNF a lot of books, and usually it's not a DNF like I'll never pick it up. It's a
Yeah.
I can't get into this right now,
Yeah.
and so I put it
I
down.
don't consider that a DNF for me though.
But I don't know that I'll ever go back to it.
Fair enough.
Like it's
Fair
not
enough.
back in rotation, but I wouldn't be
You're
like
right.
I'll never read that book.
Right.
But I do have a handful that I've completely like, nope, we're done. And they've been
Yeah.
book club books.
Yeah.
Surprisingly enough, we've had some book club books, and I'm like, done. And they're,
Yeah.
I don't think I've DNF'd any indie books yet, but I haven't read as
I've
many as
DNF'd a
I've
couple.
wanted to. Oh no, I
I've
did DNF
DNF'd a couple.
1 or 2 last year.
And that's the tricky thing is I'm trying to be more particular about when I announce whether or not I'm reading something. And that's another thing with the indie thing is I have so many people have sent me their books that I didn't like. They just send me books because I try and make video reviews and stuff. And so it's a tricky thing because it's like, as with traditional publishing, there's going to be misses. There's going to be diamonds in the rough, but there's going to be some pretty crappy things out there, and I think both indie and traditional publishing have these. I think people are just a lot more critical of the indie ones because they feel like there's a face to blame them. And I'm a big believer that even negative reviews can be helpful. I think the idea that there's reviews are a reader only space is nonsense.
Yeah.
I think that's an idea that's just been broadly accepted. That's nonsense to try and it's reinforced by people being jerks, authors being jerks, which isn't helpful. But also, there's no reason why. Like I get the reason behind it, but I think it's silly, and I think bad reviews can be productive to authors, and I think they can be used for marketing, even for authors. I don't think any author should ever go after someone for a bad review,
No, never.
ever, right? But like, I also don't have any yet, and that's something I've been trying to get. I've been trying to get people who have DNF because I know there's people who DNF'd it. I know there's people who don't like it, and none of them will leave reviews because they're like, "It's an indie author. I don't want to hurt." It's like it's not going to hurt me. People don't understand the algorithm doesn't care.
Yeah.
It's a matter of volume, not quality. And I have a 4.8 out of 5 rating on my book with 65 reviews. All of those are 4 and 5 stars. I have 3 stars on Goodreads, and I love that. One of them's mine.
You 3-starred your own book?
I did as a power move. Like one reader's seen it and thought it was really funny, and that's all I wanted. And the review is just, "I can do better. Watch me."
Epic power move. Epic. Yeah. Ratings are hard. I don't check mine all that often. I'm too busy. I'm way too busy. I should go in and check it. And
I mean, it's probably healthy rather than checking an unhealthy amount, which I definitely don't do.
Not at all.
No.
Not when you're supposed to be writing or hitting those deadlines. I had one. I got my first 3-star review, and I was so upset about it, and not because it was a 3-star review, but because nobody who read my book picked up on the fact that I called something in the engine something wrong, and I had people read it to double check because I did research on it, but and so this person tore me apart because I had no idea what I was talking about and blah 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 blah. And I was like, I did so much research and nobody caught it. It went through 10 people.
No, it doesn't matter how much you've edited or how many eyes have looked at it. There's always something someone else is going to catch.
It was, and then I was able to go in and edit a word. So it was the cylinder. She picked up the cylinder, but I guess the cylinder is a really big piece.
Right.
And I was probably trying to say at the time, she picked up something cylinder or something, because I was really into studying engines at the time. And don't ask me anything about them now. It was data dumped after I finished the book. But I was, because as an indie and as my own formatter, I was able to go in and adjust it just enough that it didn't matter anymore. And I'm like,
yeah. And I mean, that's one of the wonderful advantages of being an indie author is the ability to go in and adjust and release new editions, or not even name it a new edition. Just be like, oh, there's a comma missing there.
Let me put that comma back in.
Yeah, my first book doesn't have a content warning. because I never heard of content warnings until I got on TikTok 5 months after my book released.
Mm-hmm.
That was a foreign concept to me, So I've recently wrote a content warning because for a thing I entered, I needed one. So I was like, maybe I'll slide this in at the beginning of book one. I mean, when you know the context, you should sort of know what you're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things where I'm like, if I can provide it to people who want and need it, I'm fine with that. I just haven't gotten around to it. It hasn't been a priority
Mm-hmm.
for me, but it's something I'm going to go back and add in.
Yeah.
I did have someone recently DNF my book because of something they felt should have come with a content warning, which was interesting, but then they didn't leave a review. So
Yeah.
it's
And
something
that's one
that
of those things you can't please everyone.
yeah, and you see, I think there was validity to why they didn't like it. They misinterpreted something.
Mm-hmm.
The story takes place in rural Georgia, so people use language that I'm familiar with people using, and there was a term that they're like, "This is a slur." I was like, "Oh, interesting." I didn't think it was a slur when I wrote it. I even thought I looked it up, but they're like, "You're creating a something. You're establishing a hierarchy between real people and fictional fantasy races." I was like, "No, I'm not." A character used a word to describe something that, being an old Southern lady, was not necessarily an appropriate word, but was a realistic dialogue choice for them to use. And that was enough for them to DNF because they felt like I was establishing some sort of hierarchy. I was like, well, if you read on, you might realize this person's not a great person. Funny enough.
Man, if you just kept reading.
If you kept reading, you might realize that's not what you were thinking. But I mean, I can't control that. So maybe I can help.
Love-hate relationship with content warnings. So I have one at the beginning of my book. And it's action thriller. It's dark. It's about assassins. And there's children who die. Now, it's not graphic. Right. There's not they die and that's it. So I did end up putting a warning in there, like violence against children, all of that. I was doing a TikTok. I was supporting somebody on TikTok where they were doing book giveaways. And I was like, okay, I'll put my book into, help support you guys. But because it had the content warning of harmed children, they're like, everyone was like, I could never read that. And I'm like, it's a really great book that everybody loves, but you've already said no, could be because you've already established this whole scenario that doesn't even happen.
Right.
And so I'm curious as how many readers I've lost because of my content warning, which they would have actually loved the book because it's not in detail. It's important to the story.
Right.
But
I feel like people who you lose based on their assumption of what your content warning means probably wouldn't have ended up liking it anyway.
Probably. I think you're right. It's just, it always is in the back of my head.
Yeah. And that's something to consider. I'm putting in mind that there's reference to sexual assault in my book. There's no on screen, but I'm like, I know someone's going to read that and not read the book potentially. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't happen on the page, but there's references and characters describing having witnessed or been around something like that. But I think I've had very good responses from people of it being very tastefully done. But you can't, in your content warning, this is tastefully done.
Yeah, I have it's mention of sexual assault not on page, and then death of children not described or something like that.
See, and that's another thing is there's definitely death of children in my book. I didn't even think to include that in the content warning.
I only did because I had a friend whose son was killed in a domestic violence, and so I was thinking of her when I did the content warning. So
yeah, and I think that's why it's important to a content warning, content context is almost I think the better way to do it, in my opinion, instead of a list of trigger warnings, because you never know what could be a trigger warning for someone.
Yeah.
Right. So when I say, hey, look, this is an apocalypse story, brace yourself. That should be enough for an informed, intelligent person to decide whether or not it's something they feel like is worth taking risk for them or not.
Yeah. No, it's always so hard. It's hard being an author and an indie author and a marketer and an editor.
And as indies, we have to make those decisions ourselves.
Yeah, it's There was a huge debate on it for a while, I know, on TikTok and all
There
over the
was, yeah.
place.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm leaving my short little one for now. And
I mean, the people who don't want them usually skip them anyway, so it's like
that's true.
I skip them.
I never read them.
I never
Actually,
read
I
them.
buy books based off of them. Like if I see a TikTok and they're like
Yeah.
includes XYZ, I'm like, sign me up. Sign me up. Let's go. I'm ready for this journey. So they're good for that way. You know? But I don't think mine does that. I don't think they're like, death of children, let's go.
If they are, I might be doing a background check on them.
Yes, probably. So I always try to ask this. I don't always ask it before we wrap up the calls. Well, first of all, is there anything else that you wanted to share with people about yourself or your writing or your books that you think is important that you may not always get to tell people, besides how awesome you are?
I'm pretty awesome. Let's see. Anything I don't usually get to talk about? I mean, this is a newer thing that I haven't gotten to talk about a lot, but our readers nominated us for the Indie Ink Awards in 10 different categories.
That's exciting.
So voting just wrapped up on that. So we'll see what the next stage is, but 10 different categories. And that wasn't something I submitted to. I like made my book available, but it was the readers decided to come in and say, here's the categories we think this is eligible for awards in. And the fact just 10 is crazy. It's so many. And there were some in there I wasn't expecting. Two of my favorites were mental health representation, writing the future we need, which isn't,
wow.
It's and then disabled authors with disabled characters writing the future we need, which was very deeply personal to me with my essential tremors and my cerebral palsy. And those are elements of my story that I don't talk about a lot because I don't want to advertise my story based on the diversity that is present in it, because the diversity present in it is not there for the sake of it. It is there as a byproduct of the story and the reality that I live in, and basing my story in many ways on my reality.
Yeah.
So being nominated for that is incredible. And our magic system has been really encouraging. I've had a lot of people with disabilities read the book, and just their reactions to have been overwhelmingly positive and encouraging, as someone with disabilities myself, because the magic system ties into that. And it's sort of, in my world, there's a reason why disabilities exist. And that was something I was nervous about, because people can be really sensitive about that topic. But I find that usually the people who are sensitive about disabilities are the people who do not experience them. And the people who do not experience them have a very different perspective, which is my case. So when I wrote the book and made the magic system, basically the reason disabilities exist in the world of Perion Exordium is because magic was taken away from humanity.
Okay.
And the human body has been trying to compensate for that, and that has resulted in disabilities. And so when magic comes back, a lot of characters who were previously disabled in one way or another gain magical abilities and either find healing or find new powers. And that's cool. I wrote that for the Mick who was 14 wondering why he couldn't get his hands to stop shaking. You know, who would have picked up this book and gone, wow, in this world, there's a reason for it.
Yep.
And that's important to me, but it's not, again, what I advertise the book as, because it's not the story. It's just a component of the story.
Yeah.
But it meant enough to my readers for them to nominate it for an award. That would be really cool if we won, but we'll see.
That is super heartwarming. I love that so much.
Good.
Yeah.
And similarly with the mental health thing is Dave is in the military. Dave, I'm sure, I don't think he's been diagnosed with PTSD, but I think he would admit that he has his experience with PTSD, and PTSD is a major component of the story because these are military characters. And the reason our main character is a military man is because I wanted a character who would believably be able to survive in the scenario he's put in as a basis. Right, because you see most fantasy, it's like the farm boy gets the magic sword and takes off and destroys the army, and I'm like, let's give the magic sword to the Black Ops Navy SEAL guy, and see, it's going to be a little more realistic, right? But that plays into things. There's decisions that are made. There's a conversation on ethics and the fluidity of ethics and the complexity of ethics in wartime and survival situations. And so PTSD is a big part of that. And we never like on page say, hey, PTSD, or rub it in your face or anything. It's just how the characters interact. And they have different interactions to PTSDs, and characters having panic attacks. At one point, a character slaps someone having a panic attack, but then the doctor's like, don't ever do that again. And so there's perils, but they don't get into it. It's just a confrontation of ideals and ideas and perspectives that's a microcosm of the overall story.
Yeah. You've put so much work and research and heart into this book, and I am very excited. Very excited.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, do you like audiobooks?
I that's all I'm doing right now is audiobooks because I don't have time.
Our audiobook is incredible.
Yeah.
Cormac Brennan, who auditioned for it, it's his only audiobook he's ever done, and you will not believe it. He was so excited when he auditioned for it. It was one of the only auditions where I listened to his guy voice and his girl voice. And I was like, I can live with both of those. And he surprised me every step of the way. He does things with his voice. He does a basilisk voice where he said, hey, can I experiment with this? I said, yes. And he did. And it's so the number of voices and accents he does, it's incredible. Cormac is phenomenal. I hope we can get him for the second book. He's so good, and I think it's the best way to enjoy the book personally.
Yeah, I love audiobooks. I got my book done on audiobook for the reason I like audiobooks. There's a lot of reasons, but one of them was like I wanted to hear it, so I'm excited.
Yeah.
Accessibility. That was the main reason I did
accessibility is a big part of it. Yeah,
because
for sure.
That was like the main reason. And then I was like, oh, I want my sister to listen to it because she doesn't read books. And I was like, I would like to hear it.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say Cormac, I won't sing his praise forever, but
you should.
He made me fall back in love with my own writing, which is
a good narrator.
We are our own enemy. Yeah, that's exactly it.
I had a character. Right. So Michael Neeb does my audiobooks, and I had a character in book one who there was 8 drafts of this book or whatever.
Yeah.
In the very first draft, he was my villain. He was a bad guy. He was very stock about it. I was very young when I wrote it. And so I always hated him. On principle, I hated him. He was not like, he didn't stay the villain the entire time. By the time we get to the end of like the published version, morally gray, right?
Right.
Michael did such a fantastic job with this character. I fell in love with him. And then when I killed him. So I cried when he died. And I was like, oh, no. I love this character. Like, you made me fall in love with the character that I wrote, that I hated.
Right.
Right.
It's such a special experience getting to hear someone read your work. Bring it to life in a new way.
Oh, yeah. It's like my favorite part of everything right now is getting it to be an audiobook. Sitting in the theater or sitting and watching it on screen will be the next one. So
it's the next big one. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I'll definitely pick it up on audiobook because that's what I have time for right now is audiobooks.
Sure.
While I'm, cleaning and driving and walking. So, all right. This has been absolutely fantastic. And thank you, Michael, for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. Where can everyone find you?
Yeah. So Mikel Melwasul, MikelMelwasul, everywhere. It's the same thing on all platforms. Perfect. TikTok, Threads, X, Instagram, mostly on TikTok, even Facebook. Mostly TikTok and Threads and Instagram are where you'll find me in all capacities. I've got signed books available through Etsy in the US. The book is available internationally. The audiobook is available exclusively on Audible, but internationally on Audible. And those are all the places.
That's so exciting. I can't wait. And we'll have you on again, I'm sure. You guys have
love to be on with Dave.
Day. Yes, we need to have you guys back on with Dave when the book comes out.
When book 2 comes out, sure. Yeah.
Yes. When is that projected to come out?
End of the year at the latest.
Okay.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood. We'll see what beta readers say.
Fingers crossed. All right. Thank you, guys. All right.